Welcome back to Q-Dads, I'm Steve, and clearly, like many others, we're on the From hype. Now, as Season 3 is the first time we've covered it, we've yet to discuss the elephant in the room. That being the monsters that terrorise the villagers each night. I'm going to be giving you some theories on what they are and what could also be happening next. Right, straight off the bat, I'm going to tell you what I think they are, and that is Wendigos, creatures whose mythology comes from Native Americans. So, with that straight out of the bag, I'll drop a timestamp below with my reasons why. But before that, I wanted to go over the rules of these monsters, as there seems to be some gotchas. So, firstly, as mentioned, let's discuss the rules that these beings seem to abide by. Spoilers ahead up to episode 1 of season 3. So, number 1, they can only come out of their cave at night, but they can be active in the cave during the day, as seen in episode 1 of season 2, when they start to wake when Victor and Tabitha are in the tunnels. Now we assume the monsters are always in the tunnels, however that was thrown in the air. In the finale of season 2, when Jade is exploring the tunnels, they don't seem to be around, so that implies there might be an even deeper part of the cave yet explored, or potentially they could have only been there when Tabby and Victor were there because someone had sent them. Number 2. The monsters are unable to enter a property when a talisman is hung by the entrance. Now, there are some caveats on this though. Throughout the first season, the town is repeatedly told to shut and lock windows and doors. Now, initially we assume that is because they can open the door, but I don't think they physically can, unless they're already inside of the building. Now, this is because of several scenes, ironically both involving Boyd. The very first time he finds the talisman is in some weird rock cave where the door is just some leaves. And the second time, he's in a tent. In both of these scenarios, the doors are not locked, so we can assume that almost anything defined as a room will work, but also that monsters cannot open a door if the talisman is present and they are on the outside. Third, the monsters can freely move inside a property once the opening to the room is opened. We've seen this several times. The first time is when Colony House is attacked, as the lady monster opens the windows for the others to get in. And more recently, we see it happen to Julie and Ethan. As Julie opens the door, the old lady is almost immediately able to get in without being invited. So this suggests to me that breaking the seal to a room is what grants them entry, but they cannot do it themselves. And the final rule, the monsters are able to shift freely between a human and non-human form. This will be important for later. Right, so now we have the rules out the way, let's get on to the theory of the monsters. I've seen a few channels discussing the possibility of them being vampires, or even fae, but I've got a different take on this, as I mentioned at the start. I believe the origins of these monsters could be based on Wendigos. The description of a Wendigo goes as followed. In folklore, Wendigos are described as tall, thin creatures with pale skin, resembling a gaunt skeleton, and emitting an odour of decomposition and corruption. Now, hear me out. Other than that description, which does sound very much like them, I've got a few compelling reasons why this might be the case. But, as with any theory, some of these reasons might be a little far-fetched. So firstly, where do the myths of Wendigos originate from? Well, lo and behold, they come from Native Americans. Check 1, we're on the American continent. 2, all the people in Fromville seem to have been taken when in the States. We've yet to see anyone from anywhere else. So we're already in the right area for the myths. If we look at episode 1 of season 3 too, those wooden statues could have easily been made by tribes of Native Americans. So again, I think we're leaning in the right area. So now we've set up the region, let's actually talk about what a Wendigo is. So after looking around, the idea of a Wendigo involves a human. Donna mentioned the monsters used to scream. Now, we can only assume this was a tactic to scare people and cause them to flee, allowing them to be easily caught. Following the use of the talismans, they start using their human side to lure people. Not only that, but lots of mythology around Wendigos goes on to say it's a curse. Now, from what happens during season 2, Boyd gets cursed. So again, it's clear curses exist in Fromville. Hold on to this thought though, as I'm sure you're asking, well, where did the Wendigos come from? And I'll discuss that shortly. So now I can hear you shouting through the screen. Nothing mentions their ability to not enter houses, and you're absolutely right. But Native Americans tended to have symbols and ways to ward off evil spirits and entities, so it wouldn't be impossible to think they had found a way to ward off Wendigos. The thing that backs that up for me is the fact that anything that constitutes a dwelling can be protected, even if the door is just some leaves, because Native American buildings wouldn't have had lockable doors. Not only that, but the myth of Wendigos is more related to the north of the continent, where you can assume buildings would have been even more primitive. Right then, I'm sure you're saying, well, maybe they could be Wendigos. But if they are, these Wendigos look like they're from a modern time. And this is where the big theory of how they came to be in Fromville comes from. So, Ben and I have spoken about how our theory, how Fromville seems to be repeating over time. We almost get waves of people coming and then dying here. Hence why Jade seems to see flashbacks of old events. So if that was the case, I'm going to assume the last extinction event in Fromville was around the 1950s. Hence why the diner looks the way it does, and it all looks a bit old. Now I'm going to guess we were supposed to see a new extinction event happening at the end of season 2, which Boyd stopped. Now it did allude to them all dying, if Boyd didn't stop it, but what if that wasn't necessarily true? What if some of them would have survived? What would have happened then, now that all the food is running out? So here's my theory on where our current set of Wendigos come from. I'm going to assume back in the 50s there was a group of people stuck in Fromville. It could have been the whole village for all we know. Either way, an extinction level event happened. Maybe some of them were even cursed, like Boyd. Regardless, a few people survived this ordeal. But with food running scarce and rotting, maybe they had to resort to cannibalism, hence where the whole theory stems from. Also, as a potential side note, during season 2, 3 people were cursed and locked in chains. Could that have happened before? And those chained up are the ones who become Wendigos, as the myth does stem around a curse or cannibalism. Now, the other reason I still believe these creatures are once human, this is because of how they seem to have possessions down in the cave where they dwell. Why would a monster want this? It's not like these are things they have taken from their kills, as the bodies they find are normally only missing their internal organs. Not only this makes me think this, but also the way they act. Originally I questioned if the creatures were evolving, but the more I think about it, the more they seem to be acting like humans. First, screaming to lure people out, before then switching to pleading and whispering at the door, even leaving when they realise they can't get in. This doesn't feel like what a monster alone would do. You would need cognitive thought to plan this, which brings us on to episode 1 of season 3, where they start killing the animals. It seems to me they could have done this at any point, but didn't because they knew it would reap no reward. But as soon as the crops start failing, they come up with this plan to kill the animals. For me, I question if they were the ones to poison the crops. So anyway, taking that all into account, I believe that these creatures are simply former humans, cursed to live forever, craving the flesh of their fellow man. Anyway, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you think I'm completely clutching at straws or onto something? Either way, let me know what you think the monsters are. And as always, we'll catch you next time with something new.